Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube. Just Daf It. They were doing Nedarim Daf Lamed Vav number 36. Great year for you as usual. We're talking about shlichus for if I act as someone's shliach, is that considered benefiting the person in terms of a neder? Talk about taking truma off someone else's produce. All the stuff I'm sure you've been waiting to hear for many years. All right. The Gemara Vav and Aleph says Mesiv Rav Simi Bar Abba. This is where we're starting from. Yeah. Mesiv Rav Simi Bar Abba. Am I a Kohen Yisroel Olav Dam Chatasa V'Dam Hashamo? If he's a Kohen, we're talking about a Shru Sugya was discussing yesterday whether Kohanim are considered the Shluchim of us, or the people bringing their Kohanim, or the Shluchim of Hashem. So the Gemara tries to answer from Brisa. The Gemara says if he's a Kohen, he throws Dam Chataso V'Dam Hashamo. So this includes any chatas and any asham. We said yesterday, even if they're shluchei to Rachmana, right? Sometimes they could, even if they're shluchei didan, even if there are shluchim, it's not considered a hana because sometimes they could bring karbanos from a chusrei kapara, for example. They can even bring karbanos for a katan or something like that. We don't need their das, we don't need their prior knowledge. So therefore, you're not benefiting them because you're doing it adai to the nafshay in yourself. You're helping them out, get them Tahor and Kadosh in order to be able to eat karbanos to go on with their lives. So therefore that wouldn't be a violation of a neder. But here it says any chatas, any asham, chatas or asham, regular chatas or asham, your personal averas is not mechus or kipurim. So the Gemara answers no. Dam chatas shel mitzorah, dam asham shel mitzorah. It's only talking about one type of korban, mitzorah, when he completes his 7 days of tzaras after he's chutz l'machane, he comes back, he has to purify himself. So one of the ways he purifies himself, he brings chatas and an asham, and those karbanos are mechusrei kapara, which wouldn't fall into the violation of getting hana from the kohanim. D'chsiv zos tia toras hamitzorah ben gadol ben katan. Right, you can bring a carbon mitzorah for a gadol or for a katan. A katan doesn't have das, unless you got to bring it for him because again, these things are done on your own behest and not on account of somebody else. So we're again trying to prove our question. Kohanim that make something pigul. Pigul means when they're makir the korban, when they have kavana during the shrita or when during the zrika sadam, when they throw the blood on the mizbeach, in order that the meat should be able to eat in la'achar zman, after the zman allotted, the time allotted to eat the korban. That ruins the Gemara and the pasuk in my bar mitzvah parsha Kedoshim. It says it ruins the korban. So if they do it on purpose, right? So you ruin the guy's korban. Chayavin l'shalom. You have to pay. You have to owe the guy the money. Hashogi, and implies from the Brisa that they do it shogi. They made a mistake. They didn't know it was a problem. Do pigul pturin. They don't have to reimburse the korban. Elish pigul and pigul. Nonetheless, even b'shogi, it affects the korban. It makes it the korban puzzle. You'll say really kohanim are the shluchim of Hashem. Hainu shepigul and pigul. That's why it makes sense that the pigul will take effect. If you say that kohanim really act as our agents, my pigul and pigul. You're allowed to say to a shliach, if he messes up, you say, I send you as a shliach, an agent, do something good for me, not to make a mistake. It's your fault you make a mistake. So that could be pigul. So the Gemara answers, Amri shiny gabe pigul, Amar Rachmana lo yichashiv lo, mikol makom. Lo, the extra word lo tells you that in any way possible, pigul takes effect, even though technically, right, the shliach is responsible. You're not responsible, right? You can say the shliach, I don't want you to be a shliach under these circumstances. Nonetheless, the word lo comes to include any type of pigul is effective and makes something pigul. Kufa, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Akol Srichin Das. The Gemara doesn't answer the question. Shluchei Didan, Shluchei Deshmaya. If you look in the Rishonim and other places, in Maseches Yuma, I think Daf Lamed Vav, Kedushin Daf Yud Tet. It was Kedushin Lamed Vav and Yuma Yud Tet. I'm sorry. I don't remember that. It's pretty good. I remember that. Anyway, check up those Gemaras. Tosfos gives an answer. Rabbeinu Taz Malos and Tosfos, 2 deals in those what the halacha is. Either it's a suffix at the end of the day, or they pick one of the Sodom. I don't remember which side they picked. Everyone needs das. except for someone who you bring a korban or machaper on his avera, so you can eat kodjem. Maybe korban al banosav shagtanim. He brings korbanos even for his children who don't have das. If this is true, that you can bring a korban on someone who lacks knowledge. So if my friend sins, I should be able to bring a korban, set aside a korban for him to bother him from his sin. Maybe I'll ishto shota, right? A korban yoledes, right? When she gives birth, that's a korban chatas. It's an ola and a chatas. A person can bring that for his wife, even when she's a shota, she doesn't have any das. Rabbi Yehuda, like we learned yesterday, the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Alama Amar Lezer. However, Lezer says hifresh chatas chayil chaver lo asa klum. If you try to do it, it doesn't work. Why shouldn't it work? You don't need his knowledge. The Gemara says ishto shota eichidami. So the Gemara says yoledes is different because what's the case with ishto shota? Either the achlak she shota. If she ate, let's say, a piece of chaylev, right? We're talking about he's being makar of a korban chatas, not for the oled, not for giving birth, for a regular chatas, for eating a piece of chaylev, forbidden fats. If she ate it when she's a shota, lavas korban, right? A shota doesn't do an avera. It's not an avera if you're a shota. The achlak should be kaka. She ate it when she was a smart woman, nishtatis, and she went out of her mind. You ate chaylev as with a lucid mind. And then you separate a korban, minishtata, and then you went crazy, and then you went to the psychiatrist, and he cured you, he gave you medicine, and you became okay. Puzzle, the korban is puzzle. Once it was pushed away, once you became a shota, it can't revert back to its good status. So it must be. The Gemara concludes that the difference in a korban yoledis, which you can bring for your wife who's a shota, because that is for giving birth, it's not for an avera. When someone does an avera, there's no korbans, therefore you can't be mafresh a chadas chaylev for your friend. Elameata. The Gemara continues question. Gabi adam pesach al chaver. You should have to bring a korban pesach for your friend. You could bring a korban pesach not only for yourself but also for your entire household, including your children, your sons and daughters who are under bar bat mitzvah. Alama Amar Rabbi why is that? Hifresh Pesach HaChaveiro. I try to mafresh Korban Pesach HaChaveiro. I want to save him money. Do a chesed for him. It costs money Korban Pesach. Also, he didn't do anything. That's not effective. Amar Rabbi Zera says, Shela Beis Avos Lav Dal Raisa. You thought that you have to bring a korban for your entire household, including your small children. Shela Beis Avos, right, for the fathers bringing for their children, that's not Dal Raisa. That is not Minat Torah. That's not really true. How do you know he doesn't have to bring a korban for his children? The Mishnah in Psachim says, he says to his children, come, whoever meets me first in Yerushalayim, I will be zocha, they'll be zocha to be part of the Korban Pesach. I'll shech the Korban Pesach with them in mind. Once the first person, he wins the marathon, he crosses, what is that thing called, the end of the marathon? Ticker tape. He passes through the ticker tape. Once he gets most of his head and body into Yerushalayim, it was funny. I once saw this clip of people running a sprint. It was 200-meter dash or something like that, and they were really neck and neck. These two people, and one of them just decided at the end to jump. He stopped running. He realized they were neck and neck. So he just leaped forward and his head, was the head, most of his body prevailed over the other guy who kept on running. So obviously probably hurt coming down on that, whatever the track is made out of. The concrete track or whatever it was, but he won. So he won, he got the gold medal. So Rosh Rubo, you dive into Yerushalayim, you get first. You get the part of the Korban Pesach. Once he enters his head and most of his body, Zaka b'chelko. Not only is Zaka in his own chelak in Korban Pesach, his brothers will come later, a day later, 2 days later. He also gets the schus of, acquiring their portion in the Korban Pesach. Yeah, Marcella based out Raisa. If you'll say that you have to actually include your children in your Korban Pesach, al bisrakai, right? His first son comes, he shechs the Korban Pesach. How could he be mizakeh the other sons that come later? The first son who comes is going to acquire for the sons who come later, but the korban is already shechted. They shech the korban. The Gemara says you can't be mizakeh people. People can't sign up on Korban Pesach. It's already shechted. So what's he saying, the father? He's just telling them, come, you should be Zochel Karban Pesach, but really, children don't have a part in the Karban Pesach. They don't own part of the Karban Pesach. They don't need to own part of the Karban Pesach. He's doing it just to teach them to do mitzvahs. Tanya Amihachi, to make them, to give them alacrity in doing mitzvahs. Tanya Amihachi, Ma'yis v'hayu v'kadmu banos lebanim, v'nimsu banos rizo, banos banim shvelim. There was an incident where he wanted to see his kids be mechanech and mitzvahs. Who were the easiest ones to mechanech? The girls. The girls came first. The boys, they were playing soccer. They're watching the World Cup in Qatar. I think it's pronounced Qatar. In Israel, pronounced Qatar. The rest of the world pronounced Qatar. They're watching the World Cup. They watched the United States beat Iran. One of the most politically charged soccer matches of all time. All right. Even Joe Biden made a comment. He interrupted whatever he was doing, whatever he's usually doing, not usually too much. And I actually saw excitement in his voice. I just want to make an announcement. The United States has beaten Iran. And he said, I spoke to the coach of the United States before the match, and everyone, him and the players, like, He said, like he always says, And I said, no, you got to get it. You're going to get it. You're going to do it. Joe Biden giving enthusiasm to the coaches and players of the United States soccer team. And they did it. And then he put down the microphone. And I guess they told him which way to walk this time. But it's very funny that he has excitement, vigor. It's the first time I ever say something with excitement and vigor. You know, he was giving encouragement and chizuk and zrizos to the American soccer team. It was very funny when he said, they were like, Everyone was like, like Joe. All right. Ibailahu. Lamed Bama base. Maybe Joe Biden should just be a sports commentator. Do a better job. Ibailu. Ator Mishal Shal Chavero. Sarach Daito Lo. Someone who takes truma. He takes truma. He wants to help out his friend. We're talking about really nice people over here. His friend has a whole pile of truma, of wheat or whatever. He didn't take off trumas and maisos. So he says, I'll take off trumas and maisos from my own, right? Shalo al shel chavero. From his own produce, I'll pater him from trumas and maisos. Sarach daita olo. We'll get into a second when there's a violation of Nedarim. But do you need his permission to do this or not? Me, Amrian came in the schus low, right? He's saving money over here to the schus. It's a positive thing. Lo sarach, you don't have to ask him. We'll do a mitzvah delay. It's a mitzvah to separate our first trumas and maisos. And he want to do it by himself. Tashma. The Lord tries to bring up a proof from our Mishnah. A person is forbidden from getting hana from another person, right? Reuven can't get it from Shimon. Shimon nonetheless can take off Shumas and Maestros ledaito according to with his das, with his permission. But my asking, what are we talking about? Ilema and balakri shall balakri. You're taking off his Shumas and Maestros from his own field, from his own wheat, on his own wheat, right? Not from your wheat, not from Shimon's wheat on Reuven. From Reuven's wheat on Reuven's wheat. Well, daito the man, with whose knowledge? Daito delay, right? He decides to do it himself. Man shav yishliach. You're going to take off Shumas from the other guy's crop. He didn't make you a shliach. You can't just do something. It says in the Gemara Mitzvah, Gam atem l'rabu shluchacham. You need to be a shliach to be mafresh truma. He has to mana you a shliach. El daito the balakri. Let's say he gave you permission. Hakamahani le it gavish shlichuse. Right? That's a form of benefit. Right? When someone asks me to do something, I do a favor for him. I do it on my behalf. He tells me to take out trumas on my so I'm helping the guy out. I'm doing a shlichus. I'm acting as an emissary, as an agent. I'm benefiting. You can't do that. Why is the Mishnah you're allowed to do that? El mishalal shal balakri must be talking about where he's taking off trumas on my so Shimon taking off from his own kri, the pot the Reuven's kri. L'daito the man. Whose knowledge? L'daito the balakri, right? That the Reuven's permission. Hakamahani le. It's basically Reuven asking Shimon. First of all, he's acting as an agent to do it, and second of all, we'll talk about this. He's also benefiting financially. He's saving money. El avadaiti denafshe must be talking about he chooses to do himself. You see what? That without even asking, he can take off Shumas and Maestros from his own crop on his friend's crop. And if you say that he needs permission, so he's giving a benefit as an agent. So So it must be, well, you don't need permission. You can take off, if it's close too low, you can take off Trumas Maisos from your own crop on your friend's crop. Whereas the Olam Mishal Balakri al Balakri. Now, really, the case in our Mishnah we're talking about where you're taking from Reuven's crop on Reuven's crop. Because Amar Rava, Omer Kalrot Lishram Yavav Yishram. He's not acting as an agent because the person Reuven just says he makes a general statement. Anyone who wants to take a Trumas and Maisos from my own crop on my own crop could do it. So he doesn't know. He doesn't actively appoint me as an agent. So therefore, I'm not benefiting him because he doesn't even know that I'm doing it. So he's not going to be mastically tova. He's not going to. Wow. Usually the reason it's benefit in acting as an agent for a person is because you owe him something for that. It's a favor he did for you. So you owe him something. He doesn't know. He just says he didn't want to do it. So he gave him permission. He made him a possible shliach. However, he doesn't know who he did it for him. Omer. Gemara says, Rabbi Yemi Rabbi Zera. Another question. Rabbi Zera. Torah mishalo al shachavera tovas and shalmi. You take off from your own crop. Shimon takes off on Reuven's crop. Who gets to decide who you give the Trumas and Maasros to? Tovas and mean I get the benefit of being a gracious person, giving it to the Kohen I choose to give it to, and he's going to obviously do favors for me if I'm giving him Trumas and Maasros, right? Who gets to choose? If it wasn't for Shimon's fruits, he wouldn't be able to take out Trumas and Maasros. I can't declare something Truma if there's no field to take it off from. These are two psukim. Pasuk Chav Beis and Chav Hey in Seder in Dvar, in one of the prakim, I think Perek Chav Beis. So the first Perek Chav Beis says Trua Zarach, the person who planted it, and then it says Vinasata, three psukim later. So it connected to, we make a hekesh, even though it's not a direct hekesh. So therefore, the person who owns it, who owns the crop, so he's the one who gives the Trumas Zamais to the Kohen. Esivei. The Gemara asks a question this from our Mishnah. Torah Mishrumosav from Maisrosav L'Daito. Right? You could do this. You can take Trumas Maisros L'Daito. Amras Tuas and Adabalakri. If you'll say that the person who gets to choose is the owner of the field, Hakamahanile. Right? You're benefiting him. You're benefiting him. El Alav, Elishma Tovas Hana delay. It must be that the Tovas Hana you get to because if it's Balakri, it belongs to the Balakri. So I take a shun of the Maishos, and then he gets to give it to whoever he wants. So he's benefiting the Tuvas Hana that he gets to choose to go. It must be that when I take it off my friend, I get to give it to whoever I want. Amri, the Gemara says back, no, lo, Mishal Balakri, El Shal Balakri. We're really talking about a case where Shimon is taking off from Reuven's crop on Reuven's crop himself. Well, Daito the Balakri. And really, it's with the knowledge of Reuven. But Omer it's not a violation of the Neder. He says anyone who want to take off Truma could take off Truma. Like in Ezra 4, you're making him a shaliach, but you don't know that he's doing it for you. Tashma Amar Rabbi Yabba, Rabbi Yochanan, Makdish Mosif Chomesh. Try to bring a proof from Rabbi Yochanan. Says someone who's Makdish, I'm Makdish an animal for my friend, right? I say this animal is hektish for my friend. I give it to I donate it for my friend. So who is most of chomesh? When you're poding an animal from hektish, or you have to add a chomesh. So is it the person who owns the animal? You confer ownership to someone. You're makdish in his name, or the person who's makdish. Whereas when the makdish, when he redeems it, he has to pay chomesh. The person who's co-signed in his name doesn't have to pay chomesh. He redeems it. Miskaper osa tmura. Nonetheless, right? Tmura is when I exchange one animal for another. And I say this animal should replace the other animal. Only the person who, even if someone donated an animal for me, so he can't make something Tmura. Even though he has the most of Chomish, he can't make something Tmura. Only I, the person who did that Vera, or is Chayiv in the Korban, can make a Tmura. And the halacha very clearly over here that when you take off Trumas Maisros from your crop on someone else's crop, it belongs to you. Which would seemingly make sense. You get to decide which Kohen you give it to. That's the conclusion of today's share. We're going to talk about Inyo Ben Sion. The Maskana over here is very important over here. In terms of answering a part of the Gemara a little earlier on Lam Vav and Beis, which seems not to make any sense at all. It gets to the crux of the question of a neder, right? Like we spoke about yesterday in Inyo Ben Sion. What is the Isser of a neder? Is the Isser of a neder to financially benefit from someone, or is it to get pleasure from the object or from someone else? We'll talk more about this machlokas, the Rashba, and the Ran had to understand. The Ran had to understand a line in the Gemara, which seems to be very problematic. And the Ran uses the end of our Gemara to justify his position. And we'll talk about those two positions and how they understand the nature of a neder, even with Ben Sion, coming up next.